This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Satellite Book Club Seminar Series talk. We've got a presentation today that's very timely with the GOES 18 interleaving starting just next week, starting on Monday, on the GOES 18 operations. The title of the talk exactly is Specific GOES 18 Operations Review, and our presenters today are Liz Kline, GOES Product Quality Lead, and Chad Gravel, Techniques Development Meteorologist from Southern Region. Thanks to Liz and Chad for joining us as well. Thanks to our facilitator, Matt Foster, who's agreed to facilitate today. Matt's, of course, the Sioux from the Proving Ground. So welcome all three of you. Just a few administrative kind of comments before we begin. The session's being recorded as usual. We want to be able to replay this for others who might not be able to attend today. As usual, we encourage questions from everyone, and please put your questions in the chat, and our facilitator, Matt, will field them during or at the end of the presentations. And most of you are already doing this. We always encourage you to sign in with your full name so that we can follow up with you if there's any feedback, and we also helps us keep track of who's attending and hearing these outreaches. Always looking for future presenters, so please contact the TOWRES team. There's contact information in the brief will be shown during the course of today's meeting. We'd be glad to work with you for you to give a presentation of this sort to a future book club seminar series. We can help you with that, and Brian Mata can help with training materials for that. Thank yous to the TOWRES team. Kashad Bowman in particular helps pull this together, the OCLO, GOES JPSS programs, our facilitators, presenters, and all of you who joined us today. We've got, looks like a good turnout. Before we begin, just wanted to give you a brief background bios on Liz and Chad. Liz is a physical scientist at the GOES program, overseeing the product quality team within the Product Readiness and Operations team, the so-called PRO team, focused on calibration and validation of science products. She has a BS in Meteorology from Penn State and an MSc in Atmosphere, Ocean, and Climate from the University of Reading. Liz enjoys ensuring the GOES science products are meeting their intended use in their intended environment. And I will say that Office of OBS has been working with Liz for years through the GOES series, and she's been a great ally to us, and so we appreciate her coming to present today. Also, Chad, most of you are acquainted with Chad. He's a Techniques Development Meteorologist within the Science and Technology Services Division at Weather Service and Southern Region Headquarters, located in Fort Worth. There, Chad implements, manages advanced techniques in preparing forecasts and warnings, with an emphasis on applying new data sets and technology to improve forecasts that drive NWS decision support services. Chad is also filling in the NOAA Lantern position as the NWS Forecasting a Continuum of Environmental Threats Facets Lead. So we want to thank Chad and Liz for joining us today. And when ready to begin, Liz, take it away.
Thank you so much, Brian. Can you hear me all right?
Clear, all clear from here. Thank you.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, yeah, again, thank you so much for inviting me to come to the Satellite Book Club to brief on this very exciting topic, the GOES 18 interleave. So I'll just go ahead and jump right in. Here we go. All right, there we go. All right, so to set the scene where we were coming from in the planning of the interleave is really all due to the performance of the GOES 17 focal plane module, specifically the long wave IR focal plane module, but really all of the local focal plane modules are experiencing some kind of heating issue due to the performance of the loop heat pipes on GOES 17. So this is a plot showing the temperature trends throughout 2022. The actual on-orbit temperatures are the orange dots. the blue trace in the background is the predicted temperature out of our instrument vendor for ABI. And then there's a whole bunch of other annotations on the plots. I'm going to go through each of them quickly. So there are some green lines. On the bottom, you'll see those green lines. That's when we have, or OSPO has also put in supplemental operations from GOES 15 to supplement those really hot periods on GOES 17 when our imagery is degraded. We also have some purple lines. That's when we've implemented a different timeline than our nominal mode 6 scanning timeline. It's a cooling timeline, so it looks more at space than at Earth scenes to cool the focal planes, and that helps to bring that peak down. You might notice that in the peak in February, we got a little bit hotter than we did in our April peak. Those temperatures were a little bit lower. That is in part due to the cooling timeline and also in part due to the set points that we use for the focal plane modules. Those are the gray traces right on the bottom. You might see them saying, can you see my mouse actually? That might be easier. Can you see my mouse?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we can.
Okay. Okay, so the gray plot on the gray line on the bottom shows these steps for where we change our set points. And when we set our set points a little bit higher, it means that the focal plane has to do less to compensate between the temperature extremes that it experiences. So it works less and the temperatures don't increase as much. So we've put in place, besides these, others as well, many mitigations to help with the GOES 17 loop heat pipe anomaly. But coming this season, if you look further down the chart to the right, where we are now, we're approaching our August warm hot peak here. We're planning on this interleave capability. So we're right on the doorstep of turning on GOES 18, Level 1B and CMI to go out to operational GOES West users to supplement imagery during these hot peaks. I'll also just mention that this chart itself is from the end of June. So I took the liberty of really crudely adding in, oops, sorry, oops. Okay, of really crudely adding in the recent temperatures. So you'll see that we are trending a little bit warmer now on our long wave focal plane module than predictions have us. And then in gray here is our set point plan. If you pay attention to ESPC notifications, you would have seen the exact dates, times, and temperatures that we are going to be implementing for set points, as well as the exact dates for our cooling timeline implementation. So all of that will still be happening on GOES 17 when we enter our interleave period. The next slide is a very simplistic view of the configuration of the satellites, the ground station, and what is going out to users during interleave. So what interleave really is. If you work in satellite ops or anything related to satellites, interleave might be like just a word that you understand, but it also might not be. So what it is we have our two satellites on the left. We've got GOES 17 as GOES West on the top. We've got GOES 18 on the bottom. Of course, we produce all the same products out of both satellites. So what we're doing is taking the products from ABI, from GOES 17, we're processing it on one string in our ground station, but sending the rest of the GOES 17 products elsewhere. And instead of those products, we have our GOES 18 non-ABI products joining on that processing string in the ground station. Then we use a different string to process the GOES 17 non-ABI and the GOES 18 ABI on a different string. That's how the GOES 18 SCMI will get to AWIPS. And that's how that data is packaged up with the GOES 18 ABI and the non-ABI from GOES 17. That gets relayed back up to the satellite through our GOES rebroadcast service up to the operational satellite, GOES 17, and then transmitted back out to users. That's the GRB route. And then there's lots of other data distribution paths that are not mentioned on this chart. But this, again, is a simplistic overview of what we mean when we say interleave. It's interleaving the GOES 18 ABI, Level 1B and CMI with the GOES 17 non-ABI. So here are the interleave periods in red overlaid on a schedule of events since we've launched GOES 18. So months progress along the top of this chart. We start with launch that happened very early March this year. And then as we progress forward in time, we end on the far right of this chart with GOES 18 becoming our GOES West operational satellite right in the beginning of January 2023, which is still on track. There's a lot of details in this chart, which I'm gonna skip over. However, if there's any questions on it, I'm happy to spend a little more time on anything. Just want to highlight that we did test the interleave capability a couple of times. The main one being in mid-June, June 14th, we did a live test. So a lot of folks on the line probably have seen the GOES 18 imagery, either through this test or through some early data flows that I know have been implemented at the Weather Service as well. The next in red here is when we're starting our interleave period for August. That starts on Monday at around 1 p.m. Eastern or 1700 UTC. And then we're also planning an October-November interleave period down here as well. This slide breaks down what data distribution services are going to be having which products they are going to be serving. And I really just wanted to highlight for you the AWIPS portion of this slide that's highlighted there in yellow. And that says, that AWIPS will be able to display the GOES 18 ABI SCMI, the GOES 17 GLM, and the GOES 17 level 2 products. So the level 2 products from GOES 18 are not included in the interleave. At the bottom of the slide, we're saying that at this point, the GOES 18 ABI data have been deemed provisional validation maturity, which means they're fit for operational use, which is great news for all the operational users that are about to receive the GOES 18 L1B and imagery data. And they may be shared without restriction. So if you've been following some guidelines where you need to apply a banner saying the data is preliminary and non-operational, that will not be needed when we enter our interleave period. Those are all the slides I have talking about interleave, and now I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about an artifact that we're seeing in one of our infrared bands on GOES 18. So to start, if you remember from one of the previous charts, we've completed the majority of our PLT events, especially for ABI. Some other instruments still have some outstanding events, but we're really just looking at more extended CalVal activities at this point. ABI overall is performing very well. We're in family with both pre-launch testing and GOES 16 on orbit performance. So we do have some product testing and validation remaining. However, we are on path for full operations. We started with GOES 18 at our test checkout slot. So our nominal test checkout point is 89.5 degrees west. Then we drifted to a point near west at 136.8. And we continue to do some testing there. And while we were doing testing there, we nudged the satellite slowly over to its final spot at 137 degrees west. However, once we arrived at our near west location at 136.8, we really, some major calibration fixes have been applied, and we really started looking at the data much more closely. And we noticed this was around early June in band 7, the 3.9, these vertically oriented bars. It's similar in pattern to a barcode. So we have coined the phrase a barcode artifact. This artifact is present currently, and it will persist through the interleave period, and it has not yet been mitigated through calibrations, and we don't expect it to be during the interleave period. It is very different from the loop heat pipe anomaly. That degradation on GOES 17 ABI is happening at different times in certain bands. This artifact is limited to band 7, and it is happening a little bit more at night, but can be seen at all times of day in band 7, depending on how you're looking at the imagery. So if you recall, the GOES 18 ABI cooling system underwent a redesign. So NOAA and NASA are certain this is not related to the cooling system. The cooling system on GOES 18 is functioning nominally. All detectors are cool and stable at 60K, which is the specification. So the root cause and possible mitigation to this artifact are still under investigation. This slide is part of a different reference slide deck, which has just a few minutes ago been posted on our OSPO website. And it will be linked to from the GOZAR website as well to help hopefully better describe this artifact and alert users that we know about it. We're looking into it. We have a lot of resources dedicated to it. And we will be updating this public-facing slide deck when we have more characterization available. So this is what we know at this time. The barcode artifact is only apparent in band 7, the 3.9, mainly because it's more susceptible to noise. There is only a small amount of radiation at night compared to the other IR bands. So that limits the total signal reaching the satellite, making this noise more visible to the eye, meaning it's more apparent in those colder scenes at night or on colder cloud tops. When band 7 has been used in multispectral imagery, such as differencing, like the nighttime physics, microphysics RGB, this is where we can really see the barcode artifact showing up. You'll see a picture on the right of the slide where you can see it in the cooler clouds over the ocean off the coast of California, but you can't really see it in the cloud tops over land. So that's just, one example, a still image there, one example of that. We're not calling it striping because it's different than the horizontal striping that we see at a detector level that we've seen in a lot of the GO17 imagery. This is vertically oriented, which is why we're calling it a barcode. It looks very much like a barcode in a lot of the imagery we've been seeing. So there's two tables on the bottom of this chart that show, again, we haven't done a lot of characterization yet. We only noticed this about a month ago. So products that may see impacts and products that are unlikely to see impacts. Of course, we're seeing impacts, not all the time, but in the level 1B and CMI for band 7, RGBs that include band 7, band differencing involving band 7 and other multispectral products. We are unlikely to see impacts from this artifact in any other imagery bands, any product that does not include band 7, but also some products that do use band 7, such as fire detection and characterization, which is one of our level 2 products. We are not seeing any evidence of this appear in that product. Now, I've got a couple of examples for you, and I think this is the time that I hand the reins over to Chad, and I can flip through these charts while Chad and Matt kind of talk about them and talk about the impacts at the forecast level.
Yeah, that sounds good, Liz. Why don't we go to the first example?
Sure. Oops. Here we go.
So as everyone can, so this is from, I believe, June, right? June, early June. You can see goes 18 band 7 on the left, nighttime microphysics on the right. It was looping. It seemed, oh, there we go. Thanks, Liz. You can see it's evident in both the barcode striping, the vertical striping. As you can also see, it's most noticeable in the difference. That's where it looks like this artifact is really being exploited. But overall, and we'll see this in numerous examples, and we've had a few forecasters also provide feedback on this vertical striping. Forecasters in Albuquerque, Flagstaff, I believe Monterey, Medford, a handful of offices out west. And even though the vertical striping, the barcode striping is there, it really doesn't impact, feature detection, operational decision making, etc. At least from what I've seen. Matt, is there anything you want to say about this example? I mean, I would assume you'd agree with that.
Yeah, the little, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound good.
Oh, okay. I had to switch headsets before this call, so I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I agree with what your assessment there, Chad, and what I've seen is it seems like the artifact becomes more pronounced in derived products, differencing products or RGBs. It becomes more pronounced than in the single band band 7 like you see on the left. And also my thought also concurs with Chad that it didn't look like that this artifact in any way really obscures feature detection and therefore likely wouldn't impact decision making. At this point, it appears to mainly be, kind of an annoyance. So go ahead, Chad, with the next one.
Yeah, that's what I would call it too. I would call it more of an annoyance. And please, like, throw questions about what we're seeing here in the chat, so Matt and I can address them. So here's another example. On the top, we have the fog band difference, and then on the bottom, the straight up band 7, 3.9. And once again, you can see it's exploited more in the band difference product on top. Liz, move on to the next example.
So that's all I had with the
Okay.
artifacts. These are without the next ones.
Okay, good. So
This is a
yeah,
still
go
by
ahead.
animation.
So Liz, maybe you can talk, because I haven't had a lot of time to see these examples. So what do you think? Why don't we see the artifact on the right example in GO 16 from late July?
You mean the GOES 18 one here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is like this is just a side-by-side comparison showing that there are times where if you look really closely, you can see it, but it is extremely faint. And so we're classifying it as not being able to see it. And it's probably because of both the scene content and what time is this? This is around 12 UT.
Yeah, it's pretty early morning. I mean, well, it's late night probably. Okay,
Yeah.
so Dan said it depends on the chosen enhancement too. So,
Yeah.
and we can talk about this in the discussion maybe, because I know we're running out of time. But there could be something, and this is maybe for Lee or Joe Zajac if he's on. There could be something we could do on the AWIPS side to help mitigate some of this, vertical striping. The barcode striping in AWIPS. So if that's the case, what Dan says, it depends on the chosen enhancement, or maybe we could soften the impact of it potentially. Yeah, that's a good example there, though. Move forward a slide, Liz. So here's another example, GeoColor, looking at fires, and I can't, like in this example, which uses obviously the band 7 for fire detection. It's very difficult to see any kind of vertical striping in this example. Go on to the next one.
That's all I have.
Okay, great. Yeah, so you can see that maybe there's some.
Oh, sorry. Wait, there's one more. I'm sorry. Is this
No,
one?
that's okay. So then this is fire temperature RGB, which uses band 7. Again, there's very little, at least according to to my eye, in comparison to some of the other examples we see, that it's very difficult to see.
Okay, so that is the end of the formal presentation. Like to encourage everybody to stay on. We'll have a little bit more discussion, in particular, questions or comments from field offices and regional headquarters. And I keep an eye out in the Google chat room. I'm sorry, in the chat room on this, there should be a link to a feedback survey will be posted in there. I think Lee or Kashad will be we'll be posting that in there. Reminder, in a week from today on August 4th, again at 12 Eastern Time, Jennifer Delamere from the University of Alaska Fairbanks Geographic Information Network of Alaska will be discussing the 2022 Alaska fire season. If you have any questions, or, as I think Brian mentioned earlier, if anybody's interested in presenting for the SBC, reach out to Lee Byerly or Kashad Bowman for questions about the Satellite Book Club, or satellite configurations in general. So now we will open it up to discussion and questions for any of us that are still on. Feel free to put them in the chat room. And I know Paul mentioned that he had missed what is the source of the barcode artifact, and that's not known yet. The root cause and any possible mitigations are still under investigation by the engineers and folks at the satellite program.
So first of all, Liz, thanks for presenting all that information. I think it's pretty useful for the field ops folks that are listening today or watching after the fact. Lee or Joe, are either one of you available to answer some questions?
Hey, Chad, I'm here.
All right, cool. Thanks, Lee. So I guess, so Monday, GOES 16 is going to be flowing, based on the information that Liz provided, SCMI, and that begins at 1701 UTC. Is that correct, Lee?
Yes, that's what I understand.
So my question to you is, and I think I already know the answer, but we might as well just let everybody hear you say it. What do folks in the field offices need to do, if anything?
That's a good question, Chad. Yeah, so they don't have to do anything on their system to get the imagery to start flowing and updating. The primary satellite TOWERS RPM that we've had out there since February is in place and is the the selected configuration to use for the satellite imagery. If you see the GOES 18 updating in your view, the best way to do that is if you have up the West CONUS imagery and then the activation occurs, the frames are going to continue to update with GOES 17 appearing in the legend for a period of time, but the times will update. And if you clear and reload, you may still see GOES 17 in the legend until time has passed. It depends on the frames that you have loaded. So eventually, when you reload, that GOES 18 is going to appear in the legend in place of GOES 17. That they're in the same West CONUS, West mesoscale locations that we're familiar with.
And one of the things that I want to be clear about, because I was a little confused, was it seems like, Liz, you said there's going to be like two interleave, I think it's interleave, right? Periods. We're doing one, and then like there's a break, and then there's another one like October and November. Now, my question is, starting on Monday, August 1st, WFOs for SCMI, are they just getting GOES 18 from now on, and there's not going to be a break, or will there be a break where they'll switch back to GOES 17 in between those two periods?
There will be a break.
Okay. All right. So maybe, Lee, what we can do is, remind me when this break begins, so that I can kind of help and let the Sues know that, that imagery will be going back to GOES 17 for that short amount of time. Now, I think, in my opinion, is most operational forecasters, meteorologists aren't really gonna, it doesn't bother them, because the biggest problem with GOES 17, the loop heat pipe issue, isn't going to be seen. So for all they care, like, this is a huge this is a great upgrade. But I think it's good for transparency that I remind everybody, or somebody does, that there will be another break, and then GOES 18 will be flowing again. And then I would assume there'll be another break until we go operational in early January. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right,
Do you
cool.
want me to throw that schedule slide up again?
I don't think it's not, well, you could, I guess, if you want. It's if it's not too much trouble, then we can all see it.
You
I
know,
think
and
that's
hey,
important. Sorry, say it again, Matt.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, you kind of mentioned there what a tremendous upgrade this is, and when you take into account the loop heat pipe degradation on GOES 17, it's really awesome that we're getting this so soon, and it's really thanks to those like Liz and others in the satellite program office that we're getting this data so incredibly quickly. When you
Yeah.
look back at the timeline for GOES 16 or GOES 17, I think at this point post launch, I'm pretty sure we hadn't even drifted yet. So they've done an incredible amount of work, and really, huge kudos to them for really compressing this timeline to get the GOES 18 data out there so quickly in the post-launch timeline.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe I would use Matt and I go way back, so I can correct him. I don't know if I would use compress as the right word, because I feel like that could have a negative connotation to it. I just think that they're just so much better at this now, right? Like GOES 16 was just such a huge change that there was so much to learn, right? So we've already done this again with GOES 17, and now you think with more experience, we should be able to do things more efficiently, which I think is we're exploiting that.
Yeah.
I think before we go to Curtis's question, Liz, do you want to comment on that? Like, how was it? Is that kind of a good take on that NESDIS just has so much experience now, kind of transitioning these birds in a short upon a time that we can just leverage that experience to do it quicker?
Yeah, so actually I agree with both of you. Actually Chad and I go way back, so I feel comfortable correcting him. We do use the word compress when we talk about what we've done with all of our test plans for GOES 18, because even though, like you said, Chad, we've become a little bit more adept at these GOES-R series satellites and how we can get them all checked out faster. We've still had to go through it, and we really only were able to remove like 10% of our tests. We're doing the majority of our tests still, and we certainly have had to compress that. Especially, when it comes to fitting them in. Are they designed to happen at our test slot? Are they designed to happen can they happen at our West checkout? Are they better to happen at our West checkout? Rescheduling them back and forth between those blue periods at the top, part 1 and part 2 of PLT. Also squeezing in our product tests between those two red overlay interleave periods when we can have major outages on GOES 18 and nobody cares. Well, people care, but they're internal to GOES-R and NESDIS, so we don't have to do any external communication. We know we don't have forecasters relying on it operationally, so we can take ABI and scan the moon for as long as we want. So anyway, yes, I agree with you both. Thank you.
Let's go to. So
Yeah, hey.
I don't know who's going to answer this. I'd like to go to Curtis's question. So, and I'm not sure who. My guess is there's and maybe this is a Liz question. Curtis says the mesodomain sector request is not impacted. So is that correct? So like on Monday at 18Z, if WFO Flagstaff requests MDS from GOES West, they're going to get 1 minute imagery from GOES 18. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, that's correct. Oh,
Okay.
Matt's talking. I was just going to say, yeah, Matt provided the answer in writing right below.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I didn't see that. Oh, I see Matt's. Okay, good. Okay, awesome. I thought that was a good question that came in from.
Chad, if I can just add on, this is such a minimal impact, but since there was a question about mesos, there actually are some product tests that are geometry based on where the moon is in the GOES-R field of view, the ABI's field of view. So because we have some great opportunities that are even during this interleave period, we've requested through the meso domain working group to use the mesos, only one meso, so would only limit the acquisition of 30-second data for very brief time periods during the interleave. Like it's a total of like an hour spread out over a month. And we've communicated that with the meso domain group, and so there are going to be some times where we're stealing a meso to check out the moon for calibration.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Hey, Chad, I wanted to kind of key in on Bill Line's comment here in the chat. I don't know if everybody saw that, and I want to point that out because I think everybody knows that Bill is kind of one of our acknowledged satellite experts, and I really appreciate him being on to lend his expertise to this, and he points kind of concurring with what Chad and I had said that this primarily being an annoyance sort of artifact, and there's when you do an animation you might get a little bit of flicker in the imagery, but not much of an impact on feature identification. So and it sounds like Bill is going to be doing a blog post on this pretty soon, so we always appreciate Bill's insight on these things.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. When I get those email alerts when Bill, submits a post, and I'll try to share it far and wide, even with my Western region colleagues, so they can make sure that that the zoos get that, because I know people they're not going to get this information and they're going to think something's wrong with the imagery. I'm a little worried about that. We don't want anyone calling like NCF, saying that something's wrong. Like, so we need to do a good job of communicating this down, especially next week. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the materials that the GOES-R program put together that are published now, which I just showed as part of this presentation, kind of the exact words describing it with a couple of examples. Feel free to share that with the SUs or whoever you're trying to communicate with, to make sure they understand that this is a known issue, and it's under investigation. That's what they're there for. So like, please leverage them and let us know if you have questions or anyone has any questions on them.
Okay.
And I wonder too, since you mentioned it, Chad, I wonder, has anyone communicated this with the NCF so that if a WFO didn't get this information for some reason and they call NCF when they come in on a mid shift or whatever, that NCF has basically has the same information and they can relay to the office, this is a known issue, and the satellite program is actively working it. Has anyone communicated that with NCF?
Not to my knowledge, but I think we need to.
Okay, so
is that something
sorry,
that
I didn't quite catch all of that question, but if it's in relation to MDS procedural planning during interleave, we have had those discussions, and NCF we've completed that coordination.
Okay, I was thinking more along the lines of the barcode artifact. If somebody called NCF and said, hey, I'm seeing this, they're probably going to term it as striping, even if that's not what the program, this artifact in band 7, what's going on. I think it'd be useful if NCF, if the people answering the phone there had the same information that they can, with confidence, relay that it's a known issue and being looked at.
I'm happy to take that action. That's a good idea. Thank you.
And Brian also put in chat that the Tower S team or the OBS program could also possibly do that. That can be coordinated offline.
Yeah, and and I could put an action to like make sure that Western region, Southern region, and Central region rocks. No, because a lot of times the questions will come into the regional operations centers first to make sure that like the operational nuts are they just confirm what they're seeing, and if they have knowledge they could like mitigate it and stop it cold very quickly as well. So maybe I can I'll make a note to throw a quick email to their MICs. Any other questions or comments?
I'm not seeing anything else in the chat room, Chad.
No. Well, maybe before we wrap up, I'm glad that NESDIS is working on this, and like Dan said, there are multiple teams investigating the root cause and whether any mitigations will be possible. And I think that's good, and we'll get an update. I'm pretty confident that that at least the majority of this is going to be mitigated somehow. I mean, we have super smart people at NESDIS working on this, and especially because it's not in the other birds really, so there's probably my hope anyway, and I'm speaking for Chad here, that that something will probably be able to be done. So anyway,
Yeah.
those are my thoughts.
Yeah, so here's one thing and I hope Lee didn't already cover this earlier, but let's say if somebody has their cave open at 17:01 on Monday, and they have GOES 17 ABI loaded, is it just going to seamlessly switch over to GOES 18? And how if someone wants to just make absolutely sure I'm seeing GOES 18 imagery, is how can they do that, Lee?
Lee, I think they need to reload procedures or products. Is that correct?
That's right. You can reload your screen there, reduce your frame count down to 1 even, because it's coming in. You'll see new updated imagery refresh. It may stay GOES 17 in the legend, but if you make your frame count 1 and reload, you'll see GOES 18 become your legend. Another alternative that I can put in the chat is that you can use the product browser, and you can go to the product browser and immediately see that GOES 18 is selectable after 17, after the activation.
Great. Thanks, Lee.
No, thank you. And we'll send that around too on Monday morning.
So Lee, the kind of a selfish OPG question, but so will the 18 data just automatically show up on our cloud feeds also? Like our cloud instances are fed from Unidata IDD, which mirrors the SBN. So I would assume that it would just show up seamlessly. Is that something that you just immediately know? Yeah, that's what's going to happen, or have you given that any thought?
From our testing back on the back in mid-June, that was the case, because the way that NCF and the coordination was on the WMO headers, that stream is replaced, and so yes, that would become your TIRE08 will be East Conus Band 8, or whatever that, I might have gotten that wrong, but yes, it will come in seamlessly.
Okay, good. Yeah, because the OPG is supporting a bunch of IMETs out in the field right now, and obviously they're going to want to keep seeing satellite data come Monday. So that's important to know, and obviously I'll be keeping an eye on it and make sure everything performs flawless. But it sounds like the Tower S team has it pretty well buttoned up anyway, so we appreciate that.
Thanks, Matt. And by the way, that's TIRW08 is a better example because we're talking about GOES 18.
Yeah. All right, so since we're not seeing any more questions in the chat, as you can see, once again, just a reminder to join the Satellite Book Club again a week from today for the discussion about the 2022 fire season. It was kind of a nice segue that I was just talking about IMET. So I think that'll wrap us up for today.
All right, Matt, Chad, and Liz, thanks so much for this brief, really informative for our users. I'm going to ask one more question before folks hang up. So we agreed, and it was a great suggestion to get the NCF up to speed on the barcode artifact, because a lot of materials have come about in the last few weeks. Not sure they've seen that, so we'll make sure they're aware in case they get any calls about it. You Western users, GOES West users, you are encouraged to call the NCF if you see any anomalies on Monday along the lines of weather service side anomalies with distribution of the data, because a lot of things were changed for this interleave, and Liz presented it in a nice, clean way. But make no mistake about it, we are operating in this interleaving is a special case for which a lot of changes were made, and so the risk is higher than usual on Monday that if the satellite data is there, call the NCF. They'll be on standby as well. The Tower S team. If I could ask the Tower S team now, Liam Kashad, is it safe to say that we would like them to also use the Tower S notification to help troubleshoot anything unexpected that we might see on Monday as we go into the interleaving mode?
Yes.
So yes, someone's saying yes. So appreciate that. Can someone drop the email or contact information in the chat for those who are still on? That would be sort of supplemental support to the NCF. But at the top level, we can say last year the Weather Service at the director level asked for an expedited transition of GOES T, GOES 18, and NESDIS has really done a lot to come through on that. So thanks very much to all the work that went into that. And as far as any artifacts like the barcode, for users out there, we will continue to collect your feedback, your observations about what you're seeing to help GOES-R understand that feature and help provide a mitigation on their side. As Chad said, there might be some things we can do on the AWIPS side as well. I probably want to work at the root cause first before applying changes downstream in AWIPS, but we ought to be looking at both of those. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining this call. We look forward to seeing you next week at Jen Delamere's brief about Alaska's fire weather. Been a busy fire weather season in Alaska, and those with interests in that area definitely will want to come back next week and join us again. There's the Tower S contact information. Please feel free to use those. In fact, encouraged to outreach to those as well next week if you're seeing anything unexpected as we get into the GOES 18 era. Turning a page on history here. With that, we'll wrap up the call. And thanks very much for joining, and we'll see you next week.